What's up, everyone? It's your boy Ultimate back at it again with another Kings of Court podcast. And today I got my boy James with me from What's on Tap NBA. And today we're just going to be talking about the Timberwolves and the trade deadline. So let's start off with a combination of the two. James, is there any player on the Timberwolves or any moves that you think the Timberwolves should make this trade deadline?
Oh, man. Most years, I would say 100% that I'll make a big and bold move. But this is the first year in which I'm not desperate to make a tremendous move. Like, the Timberwolves had a really rough start, starting 4-9, but it was one of those things where everybody was kind of playing with each other for their first time because of all the injuries and the coaching changes and everything. But ever since that 4-9 start, man, they've been 7 games above 500, and they just had their toughest month stretch last month. I think playing 10 playoff teams, 12 games on the road. They managed to go 10-6 of that month, and they're only 1 game out of the 6th seed right now. I mean, when you're seeing the growth of Jared Vanderbilt, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, alongside D'Angelo Russell, in my opinion, having the best season of his career. Plus, these guys love each other in the locker room. That's becoming more and more evident. I saw the Jimmy Butler days. I saw the days we stunk. The vibes in this locker room, man, are so much more different than I've ever seen. So when you see all these things coming together at such a strong rate, and the fact they're already so close to not only being in the play-in tournament, but actually making it to the playoffs without needing the play-in tournament, they have one of the easiest schedules remaining the rest of the season. I mean, I don't want to make a big move that just takes away a big core piece. For example, I'm not trying to trade Jared Vanderbilt or D'Angelo Russell or even Patrick Beverley at this point. If there's a move they can make on the margins to improve the rebounding, maybe there's some players like Malik Beasley who I'd probably trade for the right price because he's kind of been a negative more so than a positive. But for the most part, I'll try to be careful and maintain these core pieces. They're the third youngest roster in the league as well, and you're seeing that growth at a pretty rapid rate. So I'll probably stay a little careful unless there's a move I just can't pass on.
I agree. The team has looked pretty good this season. They look like they're gelling. Everyone looks like they know their roles. Patrick Beverley coming off the bench and helping with that lockdown defense. Oh, yeah,
he's starting
beside what's his name? D'Angelo Russell has been pretty good. But the only move that I seen, I think it was Malik Beasley from Marcus Smart. What do you think about that?
Well, if it was just Beasley from Marcus Smart, you're doing that in a heartbeat. But I think it probably costs a lot more than that. Personally.
True. But yeah, I really do like what you were saying about the roster. This has been the first time in a lot of years where it's everyone on the roster is gelling. The bench and the starters, Vanderbilt, as you were saying, has been pretty good at the 4. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jared Vanderbilt, honestly, is maybe one of the most underrated players in terms of the most improved player conversation. I think he should be in the back end of the top 10. People will look at his numbers, only 7.5 points, 9.5 rebounds. What's special about Vanderbilt? Well, he's one of the best rebounders in basketball for his position. I mean, offensively, he gets the most bizarre rebounds that very few players in NBA history are able to make. Sort of like Dennis Rodman light-ish. You know what I mean? And he's also such a dynamic and switchable defender. He's a top 10 defensive player of the year candidate. He's such a dynamic athlete, and his offense is coming along as well. He's been such a good player for Minnesota. I genuinely believe he's their 4th best player behind their big 3. So Vanderbilt's really good.
Which is insane. He's grabbing 9 rebounds in only 26 minutes per game, shooting an insane near 60% from the field. He's efficient. He's a great rebounder. He's a great guy for the team. But yeah, moving forward, how much do you see the Timberwolves doing in the playoffs?
Oh, man, that's a good question because, with these young teams, we saw with the Grizzlies last year and the Nuggets a couple years back, it's hard to put a ceiling on a team with a lot of talent that's incredibly young trying to figure things out. My guess is they make the first round of the playoffs to get knocked out, but in the proper matchup, I would not be surprised if they push a team 7 games. Or even if they play a team like Memphis, I really believe that the Timberwolves, not saying I would bet on it, but I do think they could beat a team like Memphis in a 7-game series. So I think if everything goes right, they might be a second-round team, but realistically, probably first round.
Yeah, I could see that, especially as we were talking about earlier. If they match up really well against a team like the Timberwolves, where they have the size to just dominate them. You have guys who match up against guys like Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr., who doesn't really grab boards.
And Ja Morant, most importantly.
They do, putting Patrick Beverley or D'Lo on Ja Morant. As we were talking about earlier, he doesn't really score too much against the Timberwolves, which is insane. I think you said he dropped 14-9 against them in their 2 games this season. 14-5, which is insane.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Timberwolves had the 3rd biggest winning margin game this year. I think they beat Memphis by 43 points this year when they were fully healthy as well. It was not a competition. I mean, you're talking about the matchup aspect. I mean, just look at it from top to bottom. You want those really physical hounding guards against a small non-shooting guard like Ja Morant, right? Patrick Beverley is the right matchup. You can't stop a superstar. You can maybe contain him, and that's what matters. Then you have all these switchable athletes like Jared Vanderbilt, who you can throw on Desmond Bane if you want. You can throw him on Jaren Jackson. You know what I mean? Karl-Anthony Towns has actually became a 70th percentile defender according to analytics this year. So he's pretty good on that end. Anthony Edwards is also in the 68th percentile. So you're talking about a young athlete like Edwards, rapidly growing defensively. You could put him on a Desmond Bane. You could put him on a Dillon Brooks. You know what I mean? There are matchups here in which that the Timberwolves could be really favored in.
Exactly. I really do think they match up well. And they could. It would be nice to see them make it to the second round of the playoffs, just to show how well this team has improved from the past couple seasons, from them not making the playoffs since Jimmy Butler left them.
Yep, 2018.
But yeah, is there anything else you want to talk about the Timberwolves before we moved on, or?
I don't know. I'm just happy for once with the way this team is going. There's always that false hope. Can Juancho Hernangomez be a long-term bench piece and stuff like that? That you're seeing things actually come together in a way that feels sustainable. I mean, Anthony Edwards. I'm dying on the Anthony Edwards hill, man. I was telling people, he might be the most gifted young player in the game right now. He might be. People don't realize he's 2 whole years younger than Ja Morant. And he's already better than Ja was in his second year. And you just talk about his physical tools. 6'5", near 7-foot wingspan. He's already built like a linebacker, but he's got incredible body control and strength to go along with his obviously elite explosion. And he's rapidly growing skill-wise in terms of his 3-level shot making. His shooting is far above league average this year, which is a new trend, right? Excellent finisher, excellent defender. And I love the personality of this dude. He loves the spotlight. He has that fire in him. And you can tell he is always working on his game because of just how his jump shot has dramatically improved since high school. So you're talking about a kid who has all the gifts in the world, who also aligns mentally. I think Anthony Edwards next year, we're talking about a kid who'll be an all-star next year.
I thought he was near all-star level this season, averaging near 23 points per game. He's easily one of the most gifted, probably the most gifted offensive sophomore. Maybe him and LaMelo, since they have different offensive play styles. You can ask this guy to grab 25 points per game easy. I think his game just going to improve. As you were saying, he's a great defender, or going to be a great defender with his body size. He should be able to lock up on the perimeter.
Absolutely. And his playmaking has improved too. I mean, his patience in the pick and roll and just waiting for things to happen. When you watch him as a rookie, the game was so fast for him where he just ran downhill out of control. He's starting to hesitate, wait for the extra roll man, wait for someone to pick up in a fast break. He has a better instinct in terms of being able to kick when being, clashed between 2 players. And he's awesome. He's awesome. He has all the physical and mental traits that you want. So I truly believe that kid is going to be an MVP someday. He is really good.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And just playing besides Towns and D'Lo is a perfect combination for him. He has shooters around him, so he can slash a bucket, kick it to the open three. The floor is always open for him, so he can do his thing on the mid-range and attacking the paint. It's just epic for him.
Yeah, and credit to D'Angelo Russell, because I was joking around with somebody the other day. D'Angelo Russell is playing closer to the Chris Paul archetype than the D'Angelo Russell archetype this year. Because, I mean, we know how notoriously bad his defense has been for such a long time. But this year, he's genuinely, like we talked about Cat and Ant being pretty good defenders this year. D'Angelo Russell's the best defender out of the three right now. I mean, he's north of an 80 percentile defender. And no, he's never going to be like a great on-ball defender and be able to keep up with a Ja Morant. He's got slow feet. We know that. But he has a 6'10 wingspan. He has an excellent basketball IQ. And you can watch him on the court. He's always like pointing things out, like organizing the defense like a quarterback almost. And when he doesn't play, the defense just looks way less organized because he is such a good team defender. And team on-ball defense is the fun and flashy thing. But let's just be honest, team defense is what wins players Defensive Player of the Years. That's why Giannis has won DPOYs. That's why Gobert has. You know, it's never been a... Team defense is so incredibly crucial, and D'Angelo Russell is excellent in that department.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure, bro. His defense has really stepped it up, which is key for them, especially for the stretches where Patrick Beverley has been out.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm excited to see what this team does at the deadline. I'm not expecting anything major. I think if like something goes right, maybe they find a way to land a Harrison Barnes, but like my bet is they're going to make moves on the margins. You know, maybe they'll bring in like a Willie Cauley-Stein or something, and they'll probably try to dump like a Jake Layman contract, Josh Okogie, and just get more flexibility because there's not really a lot of reason to move them. I mean, even Taurean Prince, like he's an expiring deal, so it was like that's an obvious trade, but he's played so well. And it's like, do we really want to trade a guy who's shooting 55% from three in 2022, who can defend, who can finish around the rim, and be one of those solid 3-and-D role players? I mean, he was really struggling to shoot his first 20 games of the year. I think we all remember he had like ankle surgery, so he was coming back from that. But he's shooting 39% from three and 57% from two this year. So even Taurean Prince has been good. So there's not really an obvious trade to make right now.
That's for sure. He just had like, what was it, 22, 23 points a game a couple nights ago. And then...
Yeah, he's at consecutive 23-point games,
sure.
actually.
He's been lighting it up, especially off the bench. The role players on the team have just looked really good. But I do think that we'll see how good this team really is when it comes to those clutch moments in the play-in tournament. The only thing that's going to hold them back maybe is their lack of playoff experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's always a question with young teams. It could go either way. You just don't know until they're there.
But yeah, moving on from the Timberwolves, what team do you think needs to make a move on the trade deadline?
Oh my gosh. This is one of those years where I feel like so many teams are going to make moves. Like, I think this is genuinely going to be such a active deadline. You know, I think the one team that just came up to me, like in terms of rebuilding, I think the Sacramento Kings should be the team that's probably the most active. Like, let's say this year's Orlando Magic. I'm sure you remember last year Nikola Vucevic got traded, Evan Fournier got traded, other cats got dealt on that team. They just went through a hard rebuild. I was watching the Sacramento Kings the other night against the Warriors, and Davion Mitchell looked great. He looked great. And Tyrese Halliburton, we know, has had better moments without De'Aaron Fox than with. And that's the case for Davion Mitchell as well. Davion is way better when Fox doesn't play. And when you consider the timeline of this Kings team, if they keep going all in on Rashawn Holmes, Harrison Barnes with these kids, there's such a finite ceiling to this core. So I just don't see any reason to hold on to some of these guys. Like Tyrese and Davion are on rookie contracts. You know, maybe it's best to go toward that timeline instead of a Kings timeline they already messed up on by taking guys like Marvin Bagley to pair of Fox. Like, that hasn't worked out. And I think the fact that Marvin Bagley became a King, I think that's what ultimately held back this Kings window more than anything.
They could have picked Trae Young. They could have picked Luka Doncic. They could have picked Exactly.
Yeah,
They just messed up so much in that draft. I really thought Bagley did have a lot of potential. I thought he would have been at least a 16-8 guy who'd been able to catch lobs, maybe create his own shot in the post and stuff. But yeah, I do agree with you. Fox, I think they're gonna stick with Halliburton and then move Fox. What team do you think? What
I do
team do you
too.
think should go after Fox in this trade?
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing about the Kings. Just the fact that was your opportunity to build around De'Aaron Fox going forward. Like, I don't think any of us, mistake Fox being a tier 1 franchise player like a Luka Doncic or Trae Young. I think we all know he's a couple tiers back from that. So if you were to maximize his value, you would have had to take a franchise player number 2, and they failed on that opportunity. Time to move on. But yeah, I'm thinking of teams like, I think the Knicks should be a team that should go for him at least. I'm not sure if Julius Randle really does it anymore because he's kind of fallen back to earth this year after one of those crazy seasons last year in kind of a weird environment with no fans. I'm not sure like what team. I think the Pelicans make a lot of sense because of all the assets they have. I think the Pelicans probably make the most sense. But I don't know, if you're Utah, you'd probably try to go for him, even though I don't think they have assets for him. There's a couple of teams. I think the Pelicans are probably the most realistic.
I gotta agree.
Though.
The Pelicans would be a great trade. Him, Ingram, Zion, and Valanciunas would be a pretty good young core. His slashing and Ingram shot creating would be extremely epic. You got Ingram spacing the floor with his 3-ball and his mid-range. Fox creating open shots for Zion. Valanciunas shooting 3 balls. I think that would be a pretty good team.
I got you a question. If you're the Pelicans, are you dealing this 2022 first round pick for Fox?
I would. I gotta go for it, man. Apparently there are rumors where Zion's unhappy with the team. He's not even working out with the team he's working out with in Portland. So yeah, I think you gotta make a move to at least make it look like you're trying to make Zion happy and make the team competitive.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, it's gonna be really fascinating to see what happens. And I think if you're the Sacramento Kings, like I'm gonna check the standings right now. The Pelicans had the projected number 8 pick, and the Kings had projected number 6. And we know how the lottery works. There's actually a really good chance one of those picks becomes the top 3 pick. So considering that, I think it would make a ton of sense to get to this draft in the top 8. There's a drop off after the top 8, but the top 8 this year is really darn good. It's really good. So if you're the Kings and you have a chance to jumpstart your rebuild, and by the way, it's a big, heavy draft. They don't need to take a point guard for the 4th straight year at the top. So the really big, heavy draft at the top, I think the top 3 picks are going to be power forwards this year in Chet, Paolo, and Jabari Smith. So the Kings have a great opportunity not to only get high-end talent, but talent that complements what they have right now. And you also add to the fact they'll deal Harrison Barnes probably, and maybe Rashawn Holmes. They have a chance to have a lot of assets to go for a real rebuild. Because I feel like Sacramento has always been like, they've always overrated what they've had. It seems like every year it's like, why do they go for Alex Len? Why do they go for Harkless? Why do they go for Tristan Thompson? Why do they extend Harrison Barnes? It's because every year they think they're better than they are. They always do it. This year, I was listening to a Chad Ford and Jake Fisher podcast. They were mad because they weren't considered a top 5 team in the West. I'm dead serious.
Sure. They really do. Ever since they lost their coach before Luke Walton, I don't remember his name at the moment, but they always, ever since
he's on the Sixers.
I really do think that they need to get back to earth and just realize that they need to go into that full rebuild, starting with Halliburton, and just get rid of everything. I do think they should keep Rashawn Holmes. I think he's a pretty good young center who can grab you some boards and isn't on an expensive contract. But they need to get rid of Barnes and all those guys and just go for it.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I think this is the time to move on. I think nothing against Fox, but having that false delusion that De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton and Davion Mitchell are going to create some sustainable team. I just don't see it, just because they're not good, but they're not good enough to have like a top pick, and that's the tough balance.
But yeah, the trade that just happened yesterday, Norman Powell and Robert Covington for Eric Bledsoe and a pick and someone else. What do you think of that trade?
Oh man, I want to hear what you think after, but I think that for the Clippers, it's a great deal. I mean, you're dealing a washed-up Eric Gordon, Justice Winslow, Keon Johnson, who's a prospect, and a second-round pick, and you're getting Norman Powell, who gives you 18 points a game in his sleep, as well as Robert Covington, a 3-and-D wing. I'm assuming they're going to extend Covington on a cheaper deal next year because he's on a one-year contract remaining. It's a huge upgrade. I think when you add, like, they already got Marcus Morris, they already got Serge Ibaka, Reggie Jackson. You add Norman Powell and Robert Covington, also considering Zubac, to Kawhi and Paul George. Like, that is one of the scariest 8-man rotations in the NBA.
Yo, this is looking like a...
Yeah, the Clippers might be the favorites next year.
This is looking like a 2K trade, but I don't get what the Blazers get out of this deal. They're giving up Robert Covington. As you were saying, he's a great 3-and-D player. He's probably going to play the 4 starting for them when Kawhi and Paul George get back. And as you were saying, Norman Powell, bro, you know I'm a Toronto Raptors fan. I loved him in Toronto, especially in that finals run with Kawhi. He can give you 18 to 20 points per game. Probably going to go down when Kawhi and Paul George get back. He's a great shot creator. He can play off the ball, especially what they need without Paul George and Kawhi sitting on the bench. So I think that was an easy trade for them. And getting rid of Bledsoe, who hasn't been productive at all, I don't get what the Blazers want with him. But yeah, easy trade in the Clippers' favor.
Yeah, and I think the biggest reason why the Blazers took it, because it took them under the luxury tax. So it was a financial move. And the fact they took on, I think Keon Johnson is a really nice prospect. I think he has a long way to go, but he's a good long-term prospect. And that was a financial flexibility. You literally gave up an 18-point-per-game score for nothing. Somebody who you traded Gary Trent for the year before. That is a wave the white flag, this season is over type of deal. So I think it was more of a flexibility, we're not winning anything this year kind of move. And I think considering the fact that they dealt Gary Trent, considering they're probably pushing toward a rebuild in the very near future, that is a wave the white flag. And that is a massive L in the grand scheme of things.
Oh, for sure. Getting rid of Gary Trent, bro. He's been great for the Raptors. He's a great scorer. He can play off the ball, just like Powell. I don't get why they gave him up just to deal Powell a year later. Yeah, bro. It just doesn't make sense other than what you were saying, a great financial move.
He's literally Norman Powell, but 5 years younger.
But yeah, another trade that's been swirling rumors is the Pacers getting rid of Sabonis and Miles Turner, Karis LeVert, and just doing a full-scale rebuild. Who do you think would go after those pieces?
Sabonis and Turner? We saw reports that the Cavs really like Karis LeVert. So I can see a scenario where the Cavs end up giving Ricky Rubio and 1 first-round pick for him. Something like that. I think that might make a lot of sense. Ricky Rubio's contract and just a first-round pick. It's a flexibility move. And I think with Sabonis and Turner, I'll be shocked if one of them aren't dealt at the deadline. Maybe not both, but one of them for sure. I think for Sabonis, I mean, maybe that's the De'Aaron Fox. Maybe that's the King's marriage. You get Sabonis in the deal. I'm not sure. But, I mean, there's teams like Boston who I really like the idea of Sabonis. I'm not sure if they can afford him. But, I mean, getting a guy like Sabonis as your playmaking 4, your third option next to Tatum and Brown, I think that would make a ton of sense. What are teams you think?
I would love to see him on the Spurs beside DeJounte Murray. The Spurs have a lot of their own assets. The Spurs need another big man besides Jakob Poeltl. So I think he would be a great fit beside them. What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think the Spurs make a lot of sense. The Spurs also have to figure out what direction are they headed. Should they go for a rebuild this year? I mean, I was telling my boy the other day, this would be the one year I'd really want the Spurs to get the number 1 pick so they can develop Chet with Nate Robinson and David Robinson and Tim Duncan by his side. That would be so
insane,
cool.
Bro. I really think the Spurs should go into full rebuild. Guys like Lonnie Walker, Devin Vassell haven't produced exactly what you would expect from them. Keldon Johnson and DeJounte Murray are the only real players that are producing this season. Well, and Jakob Poeltl. So I really think if they tank and get that first overall pick, like you were saying, it would be a great help for their team going into the future. And especially if they can get a big man like Sabonis or a Turner for a couple first-round picks. I really think that they could play for a play-in tournament spot next season.
You think you would deal 2 first-round picks during a rebuild?
I hope. It would be a little expensive, but I think they should do it, but I don't think they will.
Yeah, no way I would trade the pick this year, though.
No,
I would hold on to that at all costs. Maybe that's something you do in the summer, too. Maybe because Sabonis isn't going to help you lose. So maybe the Spurs end up becoming like the 10th worst team in the NBA, and there's no reason to have the 11th pick. You know what I mean? But at the same time, if you wait until the summer, you can know where you are at the lottery, and then you can determine whether you want to deal that pick or not. And that will give you a better opportunity to have a chance to take a guy like Chet. What do you think of the James Harden 76ers saga or
it's
Nets
insane.
saga?
James Harden wanting to leave, and it's mostly Kyrie's fault. I really think the Nets should just go for it. It will help them with their bench. I really think that Simmons playing alongside Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, I think he can make a little bit of an impact. It sucks to see James Harden go so early, even though they haven't made a huge playoff run. I think they'll keep him just to see if they can win a champion this season and change his mind. But I'm not really too sure if Ben Simmons fits with them the greatest, though. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Ben Simmons fits pretty well with the Brooklyn Nets, at least. I mean, you get a defensive playmaker who's not really going to try to take the ball away from Kyrie and Kevin Durant in terms of shot attempts in that regard. And also you have way more flexibility with Ben. I mean, he's on a 4-year contract remaining. He's 25 or so years old. So he's a guy who'd be a long-term piece alongside KD and Kyrie. And hey, if this Nets situation blows up and they lose Kevin Durant, they lose Kyrie Irving, you have a 25-year-old you can worry about building around. So there's a lot to go for the Brooklyn Nets in this department. I wouldn't deal him if James Harden was like, I don't want to leave. But if James Harden wants to leave, I think that just so much potential for, tension, and I don't think it's worth it at that point. I mean, Harden's on a 1-year deal. With all the investment you put into him, do you really want to lose him in the summer for nothing? So that's where I would be like, okay, I'll be okay with trading Harden. For the 76ers, man, I mean, would that be a dream? I mean, you're the 3rd seed, and Embiid's playing like the best player in the world this year, and I know they're the 5 seed now, but they're like 2 games out of the number 1 seed because the East is so packed. And you have the opportunity just to throw James Harden in the mix, basically replacing nobody for Harden because Ben hasn't played this year. I think that'd be a huge win for Philly. I really wonder what these teams view their assets as, because on one hand, James Harden's having the worst shooting year since his rookie year. He's 33 years old, and he's looking out of shape. And for the Sixers, it's Ben Simmons, who has his clear limitations, and there's questions about his commitment and intangibles and things of that nature. So I really wonder, what the price would be in that deal.
Yeah, I agree with you, bro. I think James Harden on the 76ers, for them, it's a no-brainer. They just get another shot creator, another shooter to space the floor for Joel Embiid. I think they fit together really well. The only problem is, as you were saying, James Harden's efficiency this season has been abysmal. I hope going to the 76ers, it reinvigorates him to get back into shape and to play a bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Harden on the 76ers would be so fun. Can you imagine putting Kyrie Irving, Tyrese Maxey, James Harden's your backcourt. You have Tybalt at the 3, you have Harris at the 4, and Embiid at the 5. I mean, that is one of the most terrifying lineups in the East.
For sure. But I think the 76ers are also trying to get rid of Tobias
Harris.
Who do you think should go after Tobias Harris if there are any deals out there?
I don't know. I heard a rumor the other week that the Timberwolves were scouting Tobias Harris at a game. which is interesting. I don't think a deal would happen there. I don't think at the end of the day Tobias Harris is going to get moved, because it's like a salary dump, and I'm sure Daryl Morey doesn't want to dump a 19-point per game scorer like that. So I don't think he's going to get traded necessarily, but I mean, you can make the case that if the Lakers found a way to get him, he would make sense. Maybe dealing Westbrook in a 3-team trade. I'm not sure. I haven't really thought about where Tobias Harris makes a ton of sense. Maybe Dallas would be a great fit. Just places like that.
I think he would fit well on Dallas beside Luka and Kristaps as their third option. Dallas could use another wing.
Yeah, for sure. But if I think Jeremy Grant would be a great fit as well in Dallas, because he's more like, there's more financial flexibility there. I think he'd be kind of cheap. Like, I don't think he's going to cost more than a first-round pick, in all honesty, at the end of the day. So I think Grant makes a lot of sense in Dallas as well.
But yeah, speaking of Jeremy Grant, do you think there's any chance that he ends up on the Lakers?
I would say the odds are like 5%. If there's a world where the Lakers, I'm not sure how the money is going to work because the Lakers are so broke right now. That's one problem. But also, I don't really know how the Pistons view Horton Tucker, who I've always viewed as kind of like false hype, But Horton Tucker's, the sad thing about the Lakers is their fans always point out a solid young player to be the next Kobe. Every time. I heard Kobe Bryant comparisons for Horton Tucker. I'm like, are you joking? I think they all hope because Kobe started averaging 7 a game that they all end up averaging 25 for their career. I don't really know how you see it like that if I'm a Lakers fan, but if they can find a way to convince the Pistons to just look at Horton Tucker as a big long-term piece, maybe there's an avenue there, but that's really the only way.
Yeah, for sure. I don't really think there's a chance that he ends up going to the Lakers. I don't really see the Lakers making a big move at the deadline unless they go for that John Wall, Russell Westbrook trade that has been circling around the media. What do you think about that, John Wall for Russell Westbrook?
What's the point?
Yeah.
I mean, you're trading a playmaking athletic guard who's physically breaking down, who can't shoot, for an older playmaking guard who's athletically breaking down and can't shoot. What's the point of it? He's also a downgrade from Westbrook too.
Yeah. The only thing, maybe John Wall's a slightly better shooter, but I agree, bro. There's not really much of a point. John Wall hasn't been playing much. At least for Russell Westbrook, you'll know he's going to be playing those games when LeBron James is out.
Yeah, the Lakers just put themselves in an unfortunate position. I didn't have an issue going all in on Westbrook. I think that's a risk worth taking, but unfortunately it didn't work out. And when you consider the fact that guys like DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry wanted to join there, but the Lakers were stubborn because they didn't want to get rid of Horton Tucker, I think that's absolutely laughable.
Bro. Kyle Lowry would be an amazing fit for them. Just look at how he's transformed the Heat. He's a stretch. He can play defense and he gets others involved without needing the ball himself. So as I was saying, as I agree with you, it is funny as hell.
Yeah, 100%, man.
But yeah, is there any other trades that you'd like to talk about?
I mean, I think there's a lot that could go down toward the deadline. I think there's going to be something that will just completely throw a curveball at us. I'm not sure who that's going to be, but I think Spencer Dinwiddie is going to get traded. Seems like that Wizards team is going – that Wizards organization looks really toxic right now. And I'm really curious to see what Bradley Beal does, because it doesn't sound like the Wizards want to trade him, but if he wants to trade him, they would. So what do they do there? I mean, if you're Bradley Beal, man, and what annoys me about Bradley Beal, bro, is he always wants to pull the loyalty card, but then he always wants to complain about the issues at Washington. It's like, bro, you literally signed yourself up for this. He always does this, and it's like, I don't feel bad for you. No one's going to call you, a betrayer or whatever for wanting to leave Washington. Nobody will. So if you're Bradley Beal, I don't know why you would want to stay there, because you're signing up for mediocrity. And in that case, if you want to stay there, accept it. Don't complain about it. So I wanted to see what Bradley Beal does at the deadline, if he actually does demand a trade, because that could be another guy Ben Simmons gets traded for.
Yeah, I really think that Ben Simmons for Bradley Beal, Ben Simmons for CJ McCollum, Ben Simmons for James Harden. They really do need that shot creating two guard or point guard who can help space the floor for Joel Embiid. And Spencer Dinwiddie too. Apparently he's been a cancer in the locker room. I don't really know what team would go after him at the moment, but I think, as I agree, they need to make that move for him at the deadline.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't really know who goes after him either. Maybe a team that's really desperate for a point guard, and I can't really think of necessarily that team. Do you have an idea on who could be that squad? It's like, okay, we're just like a point guard away.
Not really. Let me check this down. Maybe the Bucks bring him off the bench for when Drew Holiday's off. Maybe the Thunder or the Rockets who need a point guard. Other than that, I can't really think of anyone who could use a Spencer Dinwiddie.
Yeah, it sounds really hard to trade him at this moment. Maybe you can make an argument for Charlotte, maybe off the bench, and maybe the Knicks if desperate.
Oh yeah, I could see him on the Knicks. Kemba Walker hasn't been working out too well, and it's like they refuse to play quickly. So Spencer Dinwiddie would at least be a decent experiment.
Yeah, for sure. I think that might make sense. Even though I think the Knicks are like one of those teams that are so what's the word? They're just never in the right direction. My mind's completely farting right now. But yeah, disoriented is a word. When you look at that team, man, I think we talk about the Pacers being mediocre, even though they're not mediocre anymore. They're just bad, and I think that's a good thing for them. The Knicks are just they just have no direction right now. They just don't. You know what I mean? They paid Randall $30 million. He's not working out. They paid Fournier. He's not working out. Tom Thibodeau, they put a lot of investment in. I never believed he was a playoff coach. There's just a lot of mediocrity on that core. So that's a team I wish, kind of blew it up and traded Fournier, traded Randall, traded Kemba, all those dudes. Because I just don't see any upside on this Knicks core. RJ Barrett is their best bet, but I don't really see any more than a number 3 personally, because I really question the fluidity he has as a 3-level shot maker, obtaining space, working with his right hand, even that personality. Is he a number 1 personality? I don't want him to be my number 1. That just screams average.
For sure. And it's not like he even took an improvement. He took a downgrade this season. His efficiency has gone down. It's like his confidence got even worse this season. So I do agree that he's not a first option. They made that move for Cam Reddish, for Kevin Knox. That's not really a big move to help them win now. Cam Reddish and RJ Barrett. They did play together in college, so hopefully that brings out a bit more competitiveness, more incentive for RJ Barrett to play a bit better. But yeah, they just gotta blow it up and then see what they can get for all those pieces. But I don't really know a team that would be going after Randall, even though Randall has requested a trade. Yeah.
Did he request a trade? I heard that, but I also looked up the name of the dude. I just couldn't find him, so I didn't know if that was just bluff. But yeah, Randall, I would trade in a heartbeat. Sure. I just would. I just think last year, I questioned a little bit last year how much weight we could put on certain things of dudes that were just okay for 7 years and just blow up after 1 year. And Randall was the prime candidate of somebody I thought I wasn't I'm optimistic, so I was hoping this wouldn't be the case. But just his shooting splits just went way up. And you consider there were no fans in the stadium that year. How was the lack of pressure in that environment influencing his play? And I think considering the fact that he's kind of fallen back to what he's been his whole career this year, I think that's pretty speaking of how that environment helped him.
His numbers have gone way back to earth. They're way worse than anything. He's shooting 40% from the field and only 30% from 3, compared to around 46 and 40 last season. So it was definitely...
He's shooting the same as he has every other year in his career.
Oh, for sure, yeah. It's just, I don't know. Except for that 1 year in the Pelicans where he had a pretty good season beside Anthony Davis. But beyond that, yeah, it's just there aren't really many teams that need a Julius Randle, especially with him putting up the numbers he is right now.
Maybe you can fool the Kings into thinking he's the perfect fit next to Howard Mitchell, and you get Fox. That'll be the best case. Hey, we have this guy, Julius Randle, second team All-NBA, most improved player, All-Star. You'd be lucky to give us De'Aaron Fox for him.
Sure. I could see a trade like that going down. The Kings don't have the best track record in NBA history for going for trades like that.
And maybe for Randall, maybe being on a small market team is best for him. He just hasn't handled the New York market well. I mean, putting your thumbs down and telling your fans to shut the F up in post-game conferences, like, you have zero understanding of the New York market. Like, if he has no clue that it isn't personal at that point. That's just how the fans are, and that's how they are relative to their expectations. So, yeah, like, Randall just hasn't fit New York. It just hasn't worked out, and I don't think it will.
It's just, as I agree, it's not a great fit. He can't handle the pressure. He didn't really handle the Lakers' pressure either. That's why they dealt him to the Pelicans.
Yeah, none of those guys did well. I mean, Russell and Ingram, they dealt those kids when they were babies, and now they're all top 40 players. So, crazy how that works.
I would love to see Ingram and Randall back together again in New Orleans if they could somehow find a way to make that possible. I think it would be a good trade for the Pelicans. Play Randall as a small ball 5, Zion at the 4, Ingram, and if they can still find a way to get a De'Aaron Fox, I think that would be the best move for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this up?
I don't know. What do you want to talk about?
I think that's about it for today. Maybe we could do another episode talking about something else.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Sure. Maybe we can make this, do it again soon, bro.
Yeah, 100%. I'm excited to see what happens at the deadline.
Yeah, maybe we could do another episode talking about the actual trades that go down.
For sure.
Thanks everyone for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Be sure to check my friend James out on What's on Tap NBA. I have his links down in the bio. And yeah, I'll catch y'all later. Peace.